Hello and welcome to another week of the Story Dogs podcast. I'm your co-host Mike.
And I'm your co-host Alex.
And today we are diving deep into the long con, although I guess a little less deep than usual since we're tackling two volumes at once. And I have to admit that when I finished the first volume, I was like, man, we really should split this into two episodes. And then when I read the second one, I was like, actually, I think one will be fine.
Yeah, no, I think it is two volumes.
It's not a knock on it at all.
Yeah, no, but it's very much one story, you know? Like, they're
Right.
volume one ends, but it isn't like, it's not really like a complete arc. You know, it does end on kind of where you would think, like, the middle point of the story is. So in that way, it is structured, you know, in terms of kind of two arcs. But I think a story like this that is kind of so self-contained, I think it works totally fine as a one volume, quote unquote, 10 issues. So no, I think we're good on this. And you know, there's a lot in it. But this is a profoundly silly book, which again, not a knock, which I think makes it easier to get through. I think once you understand kind of the tone, that you know, you just start rolling with it, and you kind of, before you realize it, you're like 2/3 of the way done.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like in other books, the like cut across thing to scenes from the show, you might really need to lock in case important details come up later. And this time, I just kind of, for this book, I just let it wash over me. I like enjoyed the scene while I was in it, and then I just move on.
Yeah, they do a fun thing where they cross-cut the dialogue, or I'm sorry, where they match the dialogue. So the dialogue, either what someone is saying or in a narration box, flows directly into the dialogue, quote unquote, of the cutscene from what is it, Skylarks?
Yeah, I'm like, is that it's like Skywalker / I don't know, like.
I mean, you
can tell it's Star Trek.
It's Star Trek. Yeah, I mean,
Star Trek coded.
I get huge Galaxy Quest vibes from this book.
Yes,
you know, in terms of taking the fictionalized Star Trek and analog. Okay,
but actually,
making your society around it.
Let's pull that thread a little bit because, I think what I remember of Galaxy Quest, and I have probably not seen it in 20 years, but my recollection of it was that it acknowledges the silliness, but it's never like scornful or cynical toward like fandom conventions, you know, that type of stuff. Like Galaxy Quest was really celebrating them.
It really was. Yes. The one time, the one instance where a character, in the case the Justin Long character, who's like the Uber fan, in the one case where he is put down, he has an interaction with the Tim Allen character, who is like the Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
And he really shuts him down and kind of calls him out on his fandom. But that's an example to show just kind of what a jerk.
And that's like at the very beginning of the movie, right?
It's the very beginning, and it shows that he's wrong, and like a huge part of the story hinges on him later, after he's had the Tim Allen character has had a bit of a come to Jesus moment, kind of, about the whole thing, where he has to then like inspire the Justin Long character to be like, no, you're right, it's all real, everything you've put into it, no, like, this is not stupid, it's not silly. So, you know, I absolutely, it is framed in a way of
it just felt like refreshingly earnest, which I think was the period it came out in, right? It was like, it was a 90s movie, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, late 90s, I think it is. But yeah, this book, we're 20 years on from that, from at least when this book came out, a solid 20 years on from Galaxy Quest. I do think the world of fandom has gotten more cynical. And I do think the reason we started with this book,
that was a pre-internet fandom movie, which if we were ever to pair a movie into
at least proto-internet. Like,
I guess it's like
0.5.
You did have chat rooms and message boards, but they were just a totally different flavor.
Yeah. I mean, like they're on video calls in that movie, like kids at home. So fairly advanced with time. But yeah, I think the reason we started with this book for kind of our fandom month here, because this is of the 4 books we're going to be covering, this is the earliest in chronology in terms of release, and it's the one that is pre-pandemic. So this is the book that, this book came out from July to July 2018, 2019. And there had already been a shift. You'd already seen a shift in fandom in general towards the late aughts, but really into the 2010s. I think the 2010s, there's a huge shift in fandom, and maybe the culture around fandom, which is probably tied to the rise in fandom culture becoming pop culture, right? The MCU starts in 2008. And so the next, this book comes out 10 years after, that's when you have Infinity War and Endgame. That's like the apex of the MCU. And so much was put into the culture. So much of what we think of as genre nerd culture became regular pop culture. And so I think those 8-10 years or so had an maybe equal positive and negative effect on the culture around fandom. So this book being kind of not at the tail end of that, but sort of the tail end of that, because there's another big shift in 2020, specifically around the ideas of conventions and gatherings. And so I think it's good to start with this book where the idea of a convention is still very much kind of our old school understanding and viewing of what one of these shows would have been like and how it would have felt, I guess.
Yeah. And, just the nature of my reading timeline as a comic explorer, most of the cons I've attended are post-pandemic, which is crazy to think about. But I only had a few of these cons before then. And I've still never been to a major con, New York, C2E2, San Diego.
Yeah.
So I have a very limited perspective, but I feel like even the little mid-size market and mini cons still capture the flavor. Like they have the sampling of all the smorgasbord that a good con has.
100%. I think that's a universal truth about cons, regardless of this. It's all about scale. That's it. The feel doesn't change. The demographic, honestly, doesn't change. It's just a matter of how many of each group. So if you go to one of the smaller regional cons, it's not any different than going to New York or C2E2 for a larger show, other than it's just more people and more space. But you can have the same experiences because you're meeting the same types of people. The same types of people go to shows, and so it's just like a more distilled version of, instead of 50 of a thing, you might see 20 of a thing. Right. Instead of 100 of a thing, there might be 30 of a thing. It's just about size, the feel of the con. Assuming you can get past some of the ideas, like when you walk into a big con in a huge open room, as long as you're not kind of caught deer in the headlights for the size of it, you can have the same kind of experience at a small regional con or kind of a big major, like quote unquote national con. At least that is my experience. That it's just a matter of the number of people there, but the same options exist, the same experiences exist. It just maybe how personal or it may be, depending on how many other people are there for the same thing.
Yeah. In fact, I think I'm like finally ready, aside from life stage with a newborn at home. I'm finally ready for a bigger con, because I think I would have been overwhelmed and lost my mind if I had jumped straight into one of these. Certainly the long con. Which, something like this is enter the book.
Yeah. But on that note, though, I do think there is something to the idea of, I've never done this before and I don't know what to expect. You probably then shouldn't just jump into like a New York or a C2E2, because you will walk in and have no reference for anything that's going on. It'll be a complete assault on your senses. If you
well,
have
and you
no
might not be prepared to wait 3 hours for the one signature you thought you were going to knock out in 5 minutes,
exactly,
things like that.
And so that there is definitely something to kind of like putting in your reps and understanding, okay, I've been to shows before. Now I just got to take that mindset, take that experience, and just understand that it's going to be a lot bigger. And the thing with bigger shows like that, though, is oftentimes because they're bigger shows, there are more guests that are there. So sometimes the guests that would be, your lines can actually end up being shorter sometimes because there are so many options.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
that's true.
Then it becomes a matter of like, how do I manage my time? Like, what line is worth waiting in? If I wait in this line and get these signatures, or do I bail on that and get 7 other signatures in the same month? So it becomes almost like a triage situation for you of like, who do I want to meet? What booths do I want to go to? Do I want to spend time, walking through Artist Alley or walking the convention floor itself? Do I want to go to this vendor? So you have so many, because you have so many more options, that the challenges or some of the road bumps you might run into in your schedule, in your mind, those can shift a little bit. But if you've been to a show, any show, that helps you if you then go to something like C2E2 or something like that. I got to get you to C2E2 maybe next year. Maybe you and I both got to go.
It's certainly on the bucket list, and I think
that's one of my favorite shows.
It's the easiest logical jump for me because of the driving for us.
Yeah.
I mean, we could drive to New York. We can drive to LA if we want, but San Diego. Being able to drive and have a little bit more flexibility for bringing stuff in with me, but also out with me. And that's actually like next week I'm going to Cape and Cow Con in Oakland, and that's my first time traveling in a plane for a con. And the lineup is just so ridiculous that I just
makes it harder.
I kept adding in more and more and more to the list, and I've got to trim it down a little bit. But now I'm like, fortunately, I'm not staying in a hotel. I'm staying with family, which means I can take my 4 like portfolio things of books to get signed, drop them in a USPS box, and mail them to myself at their address. They'll show up this weekend, and I don't have to carry them on. I don't have to drag them, across the BART, across the bay. And then on Sunday, we leave the con. I drop them back in the same box, pay for a label, print it out, and say, hey, in-laws, whenever you're next at the post office, just drop this off. It's going to be a game changer. Like that, it's kind of ruined my packing because I've been planning for months. Like every time they announce a new one on Instagram, I enter it into my spreadsheet. I go into Comic Geeks. I see what I have by them. And the list of things that I have pulled and set aside is 76 books. I cannot take 76 books. I just can't do it. Even with the system I came up with, it's pushing it because I know that I'm going to acquire books there too. It was unclear to me because I follow Hannah Rose May, who I'm very excited to meet, and we're going to discuss later in this season. In fact, I saw she was posting and she was like, hey, what books are people wanting to get signed? I wanted to make sure to have plenty at my table. And I was like, oh, if they're planning on making money by selling stuff at their table, that's totally different. I'm fine filling my carry-on bag with stuff I bought there and just mailing them, but anyway, it's this is the dangers of Fandom Month is
I don't know if I trust. I mean, when I one time I went to New York, when I flew out there, I think I came with 130 some odd, and I packed comics in cases, in a bag, in a suitcase, so I could just take that out. So I had a giant carry-on that was maybe a third clothes or 40% clothes, and the rest was another bag. It was my carry-on basically. Another carry-on that was
you
all
get a
comics
backpack and a carry-on. Yeah. And I was
and then a check bag that was all. That was the clothes were just packed around because I was only there. I was there for the show for 2 days, so I was in New York for 3. But yeah, it's doable. I don't know if I trust. I don't know if I trust my books to the USPS. I really don't.
I mean, I work with the USPS a lot. I feel like in the black portfolio, like they're packed pretty tight in there. They're all bagged and boarded within there.
Yeah.
Then you pack those in there. You get 4 of them in like a large flat rate box, and then you either use packing peanuts or bubble wrap around them.
So
Put
it
them in
doesn't
there.
shift.
Put the exact same ones. Put them back in the exact same order. Retape it and ship it off. And it's like that's I think the best I can do. And I have because like if I'm staying at a hotel, you can't do that, right? You can't mail them to your hotel and be like, hey, could you hold on to my comic books for a couple days until I get there? My biggest fear is like if I shipped them out tomorrow and somehow they weren't there by next Sunday. Like I think if I pay for tracking and guaranteed the 2-day delivery or whatever, I'm sure it'd be fine. But anyway, these are real concerns of fans, and
they are, yeah.
And we see some of these type of fans in this book. I was a little surprised that the book focused so little on comic fans specifically, but I also appreciate that it was con fans, because it's like that's actually my experience when I go to con. Yeah. Like, in fact, I'm looking now at like the Cincinnati Comic Con this year, and like a really great creator will be announced. And I look at the post, I liked it. It's been out 24 hours and it's got, I don't know, like 500 likes. And then it's like some WWE wrestler was the post before then, and it's like 7,900 likes. And I'm like, oh, yeah, like the bulk of con people are not there to get books signed by creators.
The scale, the scale of who's interested in what kinds of guests really is like there's no comparison. Like celebrities, actors, wrestlers, voice actors, whatever it is, that's so much more of a larger percentage of con goers than specifically going to meet comic creators, which is why so many shows, I should go the other way, which is why there are so few shows left, like major shows that are just comic focused. You can get the small 1-day kind of thing, which can do that. But like your multi-day con on a large scale, I mean, honestly, it's down to Baltimore Comic Con and Heroes Con in Charlotte. Those are like kind of the two that are left that are like, if you're going to this show, you are there to meet comic people because they don't got anybody else, they're not bringing.
I think that's actually the dream con for me.
Yeah. And those shows are bananas, especially something like Heroes. Cause you're like, cause I think something that you and I, Mike, we talk about when we're in line waiting to go in, you can kind of look around and you'd be like, God, a lot of people here already. But then you're like, wait a minute. No, like
they're not here for the reason.
I'm betting all those people up there in the front line, they're going to see something specific. And you see, okay, that guy's got a backpack. That guy's carrying a short box. He's definitely going to comics, so you can kind of get a sense of maybe where these people are going to go. When you're in line at like Heroes Con, you're looking around, you'd be like, we're all here for the same thing. We're all here for the same thing. And
especially if there's like a big ticket name there, like Timon.
And that's what I was going to say.
It's just like everyone's holding their something is killing the children #1.
Well, I would say specific to Heroes Con earlier this year in 2026, it was like everyone's here to see Scott Snyder and Nick Dragata, because every single person here has got at least one copy of Absolute Batman #1. I know it. I know for certain. And so it does, a show like that will change kind of your perspective. But I agree with you. I had that note as well about this book, that it was focused so much on, that there was a very just passing kind of acknowledgement of comic creators, given that Dylan Meconis, who's one of the co-writers, I think this was kind of her idea, like she is a cartoonist. So, we should mention this book is written by Dylan Meconis and Ben Coleman. Ben Coleman is a journalist. He's a reporter, so it kind of makes sense for that. He's kind of the Vic avatar, right? Yeah. And then Dez is our comic professional, as it were. Because I mean, I guess the fact that the Dez character works in comics, right? But this book isn't about the comic people, which I think is interesting,
yeah.
She's a publicist for again, some fly by night small press kind of thing, has worked in publishing, has worked in editing, but has worked specifically in comics. And yet the book is focused is centered on just kind of the larger fan culture, which I guess that probably is more representative of a show of this size. You know, when you're talking about, this is called the long con, right? So what is it? What was it? 5, 6 different halls or something like that. I mean, this is a con set to the extreme, right?
Conveniently in an underground bunker.
Yes, a former military facility. But a show like this, there is a weird logic to this, in that if a show existed like this, that would be the breakdown of what the show would be like.
Yes.
You know, like I talked earlier about the idea of scale. When you go from a regional con to a much larger kind of national show, it's all about scale. And if you go from that up to something that would be bigger, which would be something like this, it's just a matter of scale. And I think the percentages in terms of the breakdown of, like, here is your fandom cosplay center, here's your gaming center, here's your comic center, here's your celebrity meet and greet, your panel rooms, all of that stuff. Like I said, it very weirdly tracks for me that, yes, even though the idea of a con like this actually existing is absurd, internal logic makes sense that, yeah, that's
internal
what the
logic
would be.
100%.
Yeah, like that's what it would be.
This is the textbook definition of an internal logic book, where it's just like, you know, would they all had cell phones, right? And presumably, you know, most of their cell phones died, but surely someone after, like, at 6 months later would have known, like, well, if the rest of the world was dead, we probably wouldn't have cell service or power or running water.
Yeah.
But somehow they seem to have running water, or like they must,
and power, and they still have food 5 years later. Like, you're still scrounging and finding food.
The food thing was one of those that's like, that's the first thing you just have to let go of. Like,
yeah, it is. Yeah.
They're living off of like hot dogs and whatever. Yeah. Whether that,
but the idea that a hot dog cart would still be around with food in it 5 years. Right. Yeah. That's but yeah.
But unless it was like, you know, a military, you know, it would actually make more sense had they found like old military rations for like a nuclear fallout, in which case it would not shock me if there was a 50-year supply.
Which they did. They mentioned that, like, I know, but
they're slinging hot dogs around.
Well, yeah. Well,
it's the chances of hot dogs being left.
But like it was like the hardcore Skylarks, right? The militant ones. They found the ammunition, they found the guns, and they found MREs. So they did exist for them. The question is for everyone else in the show, on the show floor. How did they sustain? How did they manage to find food beyond just scrounging constantly for 5 years? But yeah, that is one of those things that, like, you're not supposed to think too hard about that. Which is what I enjoyed about this book, is finding the moments where, I don't know if the book asked me to think about it, but finding the moments when it was making some sort of commentary on fandom and con culture. And I found myself examining kind of the truth behind the absurdity that they're showing. And then there were points like that, like, how did that actually, like, that then the like, how would this actually happen portion of it, you're like, you just hand wave all that stuff. Like that, you know, the scenario of the book, not important. Those specifics, ignore all that stuff. But when they started kind of moving their way through the convention hall and going from hall to hall, and you finding the different factions and seeing kind of the most ridiculous end result of sort of the tribal nature that exists among fandom, and like taking that to the nth extreme. I enjoyed seeing that representation and kind of commentary on it, because there are problems that exist in fandom, all fandom, you know, as much good I think that comes out of the community that builds around being a fan of a common thing. There's always a dark side to it. There's toxic fans in all walks of communities, and to kind of see that in this way, almost just literalized in terms of how far things go, or how far they could go, right? The divisions between who's a true fan, quote unquote, right?
Well, I was just going to say, what you're describing is
like all that stuff.
Logically, who is going to be the villain of this book when you meet someone called the Gatekeeper?
Yeah.
It's like, yep, nope, there it is.
Yeah.
Beautifully depicted. I think it's just kind of like an angry pedant with a keyboard. Who
pretty much.
It's like, I would have enjoyed, I like the back half of this book became very episodic, like a TV show going through this. Like there was no overarching villain that we were like working up to the whole time. They were kind of facing a villain of the week, going through each issue through the different halls.
I would say most of the book is that way, where like every issue was them moving through a hall to get all the way to the end to get to the special guest, right? The creator of Skylarks. But yeah, it was very each issue is them dealing with a new group in a new hall. So yeah, it's very video game in that way, right?
Yes.
Just advancing levels.
I think there was something in me that wanted there to be more of a final boss, like ultimate big battle. Like they had a couple like denouement. Well, the big boss ended up being like
the
AI system.
Yeah.
Which, wow, a pre-pandemic book making like an apocalyptic event that ruins cons.
Mm-hmm.
And then ending with an AI overlord.
I did love though that the final, like the way they defeated it was basically doing the War Games thing, which you may or may not know, because I don't know if you've seen War Games. God.
I do. I have actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but the idea of basically forcing it into a logic trap, like, this thing's protocol is this. So if we just overwhelm it and force it to do the thing that we force it to do the thing it's going to do, but on our terms, then we'll save it. It'll be forced to act in our favor. But I got big War Games vibe out of that too. But you're right. There is something about it. Is weird. We've done this a couple of times, right? Where we've read a book from the late 20 teens, somewhere in there, that's got some mention or some use of AI, either for good or for ill, and to read it now in 2026 and be like, oof, boy, that didn't age well. Because none of it ages well.
I mean, call back to last summer, which was social media summer.
Absolutely,
we saw it go from, like, we just watched it become more pessimistic in the way that we had responded to AI.
Way more cynical, way more
and I guess one thing that I don't recall pointing out, but the people in, I don't know, 2018, 2019 that were pointing out the downside of AI were seen as like the skeptics, the cynics, the Luddites.
Yeah.
And, now that's the norm. Now the optimists are the outliers. But
yeah,
I'm second guessing this as I'm saying it, because I'm like, I actually don't remember a time in human history in my 40 years on this earth where people thought, oh, artificial intelligence, that would be a good thing. So I'm like, go back to Terminator, go back to the Matrix. Like, it's just like every decade has had a fear of like, won't computers inevitably lead to this? And won't that? I think the most painful part about all of this is that while AI skepticism and cynicism has always been around, what we have learned in the last few years that just really darkens the picture is that people like you and I can have all of the qualms we want and all of our reservations and questions or whatever, and it just doesn't matter at all. These dudes are just going to do whatever they want.
Well, and I think because what we thought AI was going to be isn't what we got. Because I think what we thought AI was going to be was Jarvis from Iron Man. That's what everything we thought about AI. We talk about Terminator. We talk about even the Doomsday Centers. That's what we thought AI was going to be,
which would be great. And I welcome it.
And that is the idea of like actual artificial intelligence, like actual sentience in some way, right? And what we got is simply like manufactured intel, like you have to feed it prompts and you get something out of it, right? As opposed to it thinking on its own. The thing that we wrote stories about and the things that we were concerned about back in the day was that idea of this thing is going to think on its own. as opposed to what we have now, which is we're replacing our own thinking. We're giving it prompts and not thinking about what comes out. So it's like we're feeding and getting it and making ourselves dumber versus this thing thinking on its own. Because that's the thing that Claude and ChatGPT and all these things, they're not generating their own thoughts and answers. They still need to be prompted. All the generative AI stuff, all the AI slop that comes out, it can't just generate. It can't just make something up. It has to pull from existing ideas and material, and that's the AI we ended up getting, which is so much worse than like the actual like if the Terminator showed up and like this thing is thinking on its own, I wouldn't be happy about it, but I'd be like, well, damn, we got that one right, and that was inevitable.
You would at least be impressed.
I would understand, like, this is the doomsday future we were promised versus the doomsday future that we're in, right? And so to see this character, which I think her name was Marta, am I right about that? I think it was Marta. Like this is much more along the lines of a Jarvis, right? Of a Friday, of Terminator, of the Matrix, things like that. This idea that this thing is thinking and acting completely on its own. That was the doomsday scenario that this kind of AI, I think is meant to kind of show and replicate, which is radically different from where we are now as we're reading this book in 2026. When we think of AI, that is not, we still think of this version of AI. We still think of Jarvis as science fiction. As much AI is in our life, that version of AI does not exist. The version of AI in this book, this Marta, this thing that was used as part of the show and was both like in the show and making the show, that version of AI is still science fiction to us. We have not achieved that yet. We have not achieved full sentience for artificial machines.
Right. I mean, like, we're not even trying that. This is a whole unrelated tangent, but suffice it to say, they are slapping the label of AI on everything because there's money in it. Like, there's money in I pay I have paid for the last 10 years a monthly fee for increased Google Drive storage. And I noticed on my last bill that the name of my plan had changed from like Google Drive storage to like Gemini Pro something with 10 gigs of storage or whatever. And I was like, hold on now. And what they did was repackage what I was buying. They didn't even raise the price. They just made it so that I'm buying Gemini Pro, even though I've never used Gemini. And I've got 10 gigs of space on Google Drive. So they can go back to their shareholders and say, look, more people are buying our AI product and it will increase the quarterly stock earnings and, the total monthly users at the end of the year. And it's just like, this is so, like, it's so pathetic that a company the size of Google has to behave that way. Like, I would understand if a little guy was doing that, but like Google, that's so insane to me.
As you were talking, I was like, I wonder what my plan is. Okay, because I have a similar thing. So I've got the regular basic, which is fine. But then you look at the other options, upgrade options, standard, and then Google AI Plus. You're like, wait a minute, wait, that's the next one up. Yeah. So you're right. That's what the plan is called.
That's what I'm on now. Like, I didn't have a choice about it.
You're like, that seems not right. That doesn't seem great. But yeah, but you're 100% right that it is coming. So like, I literally just got a new phone. Just upgraded my phone. It was about time. What'd you get? My phone was getting a little wonky. I'm a Samsung guy. I've had a Samsung forever, so I got the newest Samsung. But as you're setting it up, right, you have all of these things, all the various AI things that are just preloaded that I've got to go and like just either disable or uninstall because like I don't want any of this junk. I don't want Gemini, I don't want any of that stuff on my phone. And I know that most of it I can't get rid of, but at least for now I can turn it off.
Well, I'm also a Samsung user and I refused to buy a new product while they're pushing AI. So I bought a refurbished model and I'm like, I will keep using a smartphone, but I'm keeping my money out of the company's pockets until they give me the option to opt in or out of certain things.
Well,
So
I mean,
that's punishing, that's drinking poison and hoping your enemy dies. But
yeah, that really, because that I admire the commitment to the bit,
principle,
but
yeah,
but that ain't never going to happen. Opt out.
Oh no,
like
no, no. I know.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
it's not. So I'm just going to content myself by saying like, I'm fine giving my money to secondhand retailers, but Samsung's not getting any money from me, even though I enjoy their products and I'm using their products. I like it's my small consumer way to try to send a message.
Yeah.
Because what am I going to do? Go use Apple? They're not any better.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, your options are the same, which are not good. But yeah, I think it is. I mean, we've gone off on a major tangent here on this book here, but I do think there is it again. I think anytime we cover a book that has any sort of kind of AI thing from a handful of years ago, it jumps out because it is just inadvertently aged poorly. It's just there's no way around it. That any book from 5, 6, 7, or 10 years ago, something like that, that was you talking about AI in that way. You read it now and you're like, well, that's not what we got. That's not what we're dealing with now, you know? And I don't think it puts a pall in the book because I think I do think though there the note I actually had on the Marta character or the idea was a little bit about the AI-ness of it, but really what that is a stand-in for, and that is actually your stand-in for like the pedantic fan, right? Because what did he?
Oh, they
what
programmed, the ultimate gatekeeper.
Yeah, exactly. That it's the it cross-references every script that's ever been written. Right. So it knows it knows what happened in every episode. It is the show Bible to the point where they started relying on it basically to generate stories that we haven't done before. So this is the thing that is the repository of all knowledge. And it is what decides this is what's canon and this is what's not. And so to take that type of fan, which exists in every fandom, that person, right? And to have that be embodied by what you imagine is just like a soulless machine, I thought was funny commentary.
It's great.
And I enjoyed again the way that this book comments on things like that. I enjoyed what they did with the, as they used to be called, like booth babes or whatever, the idea of femininity and specifically women's experiences at cons. It's not funny. I don't know. You had the one Skylark lieutenant or whatever, right? Who was real resentful of like all the models, right?
Oh yeah.
And they had this kind of confrontation of just like, blah, blah, blah. How it's like, you guys never made me feel comfortable as a fan because you guys were tall and beautiful and sexy and you got all the attention, but your fandom was never questioned because you were hot, yada, yada, yada. And then they fire back with kind of the same sort of thing. And there's this common ground of like, you know what? We were all treated terribly,
Yeah.
And there is a meeting of understanding a common experience, which is actually something that doesn't happen enough in fandom. Because yes, these things happen and they're terrible. And hopefully they're happening less. I can't speak to this if they are, but there's at least more awareness about it now in terms of specifically the treatment of women at shows like these, at cons. But just the idea of understanding that your experience isn't unique and that's not a bad thing, right? Specifically your bad experience, and that there maybe is some strength and some comfort maybe in understanding that other people have gone through the same sort of thing you have, and finding a way through it, I guess. And I guess, again, that goes for all types of fandoms, this idea of thinking that you're part of this community, but your experience is somehow singular.
I mean, I think that's what, loneliness and isolation and bullying all do.
Absolutely.
And the fact of the matter is more people could bond over that
Yeah.
than the people who could bond over, or the people who would be disconnected from that experience.
And it's the dichotomy of fandom, right? This idea of, I love this thing, I'm into this thing, I'm part of this community, but being in this community, I end up getting, like you said, like bullied or feel unwelcome by some members of that community. So that shuts me out, and I feel isolated and alone. But you're right, there is an idea of, there are other people that feel that way as well, and there are more people that want to be inviting in a fandom than want to be exclusionary. And it's the thing of like, it's the minority that speaks the loudest, right? The loudest people online, the worst people online. That's the small minority of it, and this goes across things beyond fandom as well, specific kind of nerd fandom. And so the idea of hopefully these people who feel like they've been ostracized, like they've been jettisoned, like they are feeling unwelcome by a small group of highly vocal, terrible people, can find their place in a fandom by understanding and reaching out and knowing that there are other people who have felt this way, and finding strength in those numbers, that there are more of them than there are of their other, kind of this vocal minority of gatekeepers. And it is where going to cons and going to shows can be helpful, and it can be scary for people, as we talked about, if you've never been to a show before. But if there's like a meetup, like an official group meetup or something like that, or not an official, just like made by fans, like, hey, there's a fan meetup for this group, we're meeting outside this room or something like that, and just for a place for people who maybe go to a show and don't know anyone there, just to officially be around that community, things like that can be helpful.
It's amazing,
because the people showing up for that are the ones who want to be with other people, who want to be the community, to be inclusive. So those are the places are going to be welcoming.
Believe it or not, we've actually stumbled into an on-ramp for discussing this book.
Yeah, we have.
Which is I think the best way to get into this story is exactly what they did, which is Victor. Like, Victor is kind of like, he's got his ties to it, but he's like above it, over it. Like,
he's a writer.
He's ironically detached. Like, right?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I kind of want to roll my eyes at all this stuff and be above it. And
this is probably more than the book wants to dig into it. But my question for you is, do you think Victor is someone who would go to a con if he weren't covering it?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, I agree. That he, even though he is of this world, he knows people love it, he may be fans of some of these things. He is not someone. He ends
up winning the Gatekeeper's trivia, right? But I think he is a person who would not let himself be among these people. Yes. Not that he wouldn't enjoy the content, because clearly he enjoys the content.
Yes,
and I think those are the saddest people. Like, like, to me, Victor at the beginning of the story is a sadder character than even the Gatekeeper. Like, the Gatekeeper, gets his little jollies, but I think at the end of the day, what do you get out of like being an online troll and trying to ruin other people's experience?
Yeah. Well, I don't think Victor's a troll. I just think he doesn't care.
No, I'm talking about the Gatekeeper. I'm saying, that guy, sure, he has his little satisfactions, but like, what's a big win for a Gatekeeper type guy?
Yeah.
Nothing. Yeah. He's sitting at the top of his hierarchy.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere else to go. Alexander wept for there are nowhere worlds to conquer type thing. Whereas like Victor is just denying himself pleasure because he's trying to project this image of being like above this type of fandom.
Yeah.
Or even the stuff that the fandom is about. Like, oh, my taste is too cultured for like, I have all kinds of friends who we really bonded over like, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, 2008 to 2012. And then they kind of act like they're grown up now. And I'm like, I know you still enjoy those movies. You just won't let yourself watch them now because you got a New Yorker subscription for the free tote bag or whatever. But I'm just like, like some of the stuff I enjoy is campy, and I love campiness. I love the right kind of campiness.
Yeah, and there's the idea that things that are quote unquote for children can't be for adults.
Well, and that like and that your personal interests are somehow limiting you or defining you in a certain way, or that they need to. Like,
yeah, sure.
like
Oh yeah,
the people who try to, and I'm also one of the, I'm guilty here too. I'm in all of these pictures, but uh, people who will try to make themselves read really prestigious, like difficult
hmm
novels, just for the sake of saying like, there, I did it.
yeah,
It's just like that's no way to live. Like you have to enjoy things too. And every good writer and reader I know says like, read what you enjoy. Like don't punish yourself by just forcing yourself through the drudgery of flipping through something you don't enjoy. And that's not to say
oh
that
yeah,
Victor doesn't enjoy things outside of this, but on the same token, why deny yourself the pleasure of, this type of fandom, connecting with
yeah,
these type of people? I mean, I think the happiest he looks in the book is when he's doing his trivia and just crushing it. Because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
oh, you actually do know this
Well,
stuff
he
and
yeah,
you enjoy flexing it.
listen, yeah, he's been listening. He understands. Yeah, and there is something. I love what you said about the idea of just yeah you life's too short to do things you don't enjoy or to
Or
deny
yourself
yourself
things.
joy.
Exactly.
Yeah, deny yeah to not do things that you would enjoy and derive pleasure. But and I think the line that people have to walk and it's a line that you have to walk at a show because this goes back to what we said however minutes ago about the makeup of a con and who goes to a con. Just because it's not your thing doesn't mean you got to put it down, like just because someone is there for something that you're not into. Okay,
I
great.
mean, I have these
Let them,
conversations with
yeah,
people all the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like all the time. Like I have thought about running into, um, Richard Brody, the New York Times movie reviewer. I'm like, stop going to MCU movies.
Yeah.
You're principally opposed to them. You
Yeah.
cannot let yourself enjoy one of them. So just stop. Like just send another writer, or just say we don't review Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Like there's just no reason to like go on this uh big dirge of a like thing.
Well,
Like I
yes.
I
Except
got
though,
another example is like my daughter was delighted to go see the live action Moana movie this summer in the theater.
mhm,
Um, we saw it, and honestly, it was totally fine. Like it was completely acceptable. Like which is basically what they were aiming for. And she got the delight of going to the theater, seeing something a little different, but something familiar. And I was like flipping through the Rotten Tomatoes reviews of it and just looking at all of the
savaged.
critics. And well, but I was like, none of them are even talking about what they saw. Like they're all complaining about the fact that it exists and what this says about the industry and the greed of Disney and blah 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 blah. I'm like, that's cultural commentary. You're supposed to write a movie review. Like, how were the actors? How was the set? How was the story? How was the soundtrack? Was it visually beautiful? Was it stunning? Um, like, talk about the experience you had, not the meta experience around the experience. And I'm like, because I think you actually like I think a human with a heart and a brain should be able to sit through most movies like that and enjoy themselves for 90 minutes. Like it's not going to change your life. You're
Yeah.
not going to be talking about it for years to come, but you should be able to enjoy it. And the fact that it's like, I don't know, 32% positive reviews was like everyone saw this as their opportunity to be like, no more Disney remakes. Like, and there are funny things to be said. Like the Onion had an article the day before it came out, like, who is this movie for? And their first answer was 12-year-olds who are nostalgic for their childhood. And I was like, that's exactly right. Like, that's a good joke. And that's not saying, like, don't go see this movie. It was terrible CGI. Like, I can't believe they did this. It's just like, that's just a funny joke. So I'm like, I'm fine joking about the silliness and absurdity of things, but like,
I mean, but
so
if
many
you can
critics can't even see the thing
I
because they're
said,
so hung up on their angle on the
well, I
thing.
said, but if you can get critics to stop doing that across the board, I mean,
Right.
goodbye
Yeah.
criticism. Because yeah, like a lot of people who hate on movies and things like that, like they want to go see it. They won't admit it, but they want to go see it because they just want to hate on it. Because a lot of someone like,
you get more clout for hating on things than liking them.
Yeah. Like if you're a movie reviewer and you think the only thing that is worth seeing is something from A24 or whatnot, stuff from A24 is great. A lot of it's really, really good. But if that's all you think movies are, you get off on some way of just being like, I'm going to go to this thing that I know I'm not going to like just so I can savage it. And you're like, well, congrats, you're no better than Ben Shapiro, like, so yeah, there is, and yet I don't think I want to compare Victor to that on that level, but there is his character is written on a bit of a detachment, which I do think makes it an interesting angle. And again, especially since Ben Coleman, is our one of the co-writers, is a journalist, is someone who has covered cons and has covered cons very interestingly, for some great comic places, specifically like The Beat and all that. So he so maybe that was a way for him to have some commentary on the journalists that cover shows, then maybe by him by having Victor be that kind of detached person, maybe it was a way for him to say, these are the kinds of people that I see at shows in my line of work. I clearly had a typo. It is Marla, not Marta. I somehow
when you said Marta before, I was like, are you sure it wasn't Martha?
Yeah,
and then they could have had why did you say that name joke.
I'm looking at my notes now, but I'm going through the page like, nope, that was a typo on my end there. So yeah, I guess so. So we need to talk about Victor and kind of what his analog is, and maybe what Ben Coleman's kind of thought was about depicting a journalist character like that, given that's his line of work. That brings us to Destiny, or to Des, who I guess in a way is the Dylan Meconis avatar, right? The someone who is a professional who attends shows as talent, who has sat behind a table, kind of done that slog. I guess I don't want to call it a slog, but it seems like one.
It's a slog.
It seems like when
selling
you're sitting at your table,
books. Yeah, I mean, like
you're in Artist Alley all day.
The thing that I feel really terrible for, like, and I end up buying books that, like, I eventually read them, but I'm not like eager to read them. Mm-hmm. But the guys who were like there didn't even afford a booth. Like, they're walking around with a backpack of their own books. Yeah. Just being like, hey, you like comics, right? Like, here's mine. And you got an endorsement from so-and-so and so. It's on an indie publishing. It's just like, oh, it's so sad. I can't, like, it's genuinely, like, deeply, deeply sad to me. And I'm like, I want to help you, but I'm not really, like, interested the hustle, in what though, right? Your book is. I know,
the hustle,
but I end up buying a lot of them because I'm just like, it's not panhandling. Like, they put their blood, sweat, and tears on paper. And it's like,
still pretty close though. Still pretty close when you're just walking out. Like, if you, because that person,
they're
that
offering
person
you
who
a
did
product.
That person who did that though, that person bought a guest pass to get it. They bought a ticket to get it.
Oh yeah, and they're not going to recover the cost of their ticket with their sales.
No, absolutely not. So yeah, but there is something to, again, the grind, the hustle, and even if you're someone who sits in Artist Alley, again, it's one thing if you're someone who has been published at one of the big two, or even an Image or something like that, someone that maybe works with a handler or one of the agencies like Comic Sketch Art, or it says a Sequential, something like that. Someone who very maybe not comfortably, but very notably makes their living making comics, versus some of the artists in Artist Alley, some of the creatives who are just grinding. They're there and they're sitting all day hoping someone comes up and sees their art or sees the book they've written or something like that. You can walk through and it's hundreds of people like that. Destiny here works for a super small indie publisher. You see those tables as well. Some small fly-by-night indie publisher that you've never heard of, they've got a little table there with 3 or 4 authors and writers, and they're just trying to sell their books. Any of them, come by the table, see what they're offering. Like that kind of hustle, like, God, it's so much work. It's got to be so much work.
I have a small box of like, little self-bound trades or single issues that I purchased from little labels at Comic Cons that like they're not even on Comic Geeks. Like I have to keep them in a box and check back every once in a while, but I'm like, I don't know. Like I don't have the self-promotion gene. Like I'm not good at promoting this podcast among other things, but I think if I were trying to start a comic book label and I had a published comic, the first thing I would do is submit my entry into Comic Geeks, just so when people search it, they can see that like we're a somewhat real company. But yeah, wild stuff.
But
like
it-
I would
it-
I would
it is.
certainly sit down and do that for 5 minutes at a computer before I buy a pass to a convention and try to convince a bunch of people this is real.
Yeah, well, I think especially if you're a publisher, even if it's the indiest of indie publishing, if you've shelled out enough to get your own table and have people walk up to it and see, then yeah, having your book searchable on known databases gives you an air of legitimacy,
Yeah.
And I don't know if the publisher that Dev works for would be on Comic Geeks, like they seem real fly by night like that, which again, I wonder if that goes into Dylan Meconis's own experience and maybe some of the stuff that they've done, self-publishing or where they've done their cartooning, or again, just things they've seen, the idea of you're not the big two, you're not the big four, you're not the big five, like you're way down on the list. So what's it like to be at a con, especially at a con this big, like the biggest con? So like if you're the smallest indies publisher and you have a table, you got a table at New York Comic Con, great. But you walk out in the concourse in DC, their booth is so big, they're not in the floor, they're in the concourse. The DC booth needs so much space there. Marvel is taken up like basically a square block of the show on the show floor. And you've got like one little table there. So like, what is that experience like? And how do you get people to even just be interested to stop by? Because step one is you got to get them to walk over to your booth to talk to you. And then step two is you got to talk to them and sell them on your book. Right. So it's like you got multiple levels of what you would have to do and what that experience would be. And part of me does wish that this book touched a little bit more on that. I know that's not what the book was about. But seeing a little more of that struggle and maybe how that would translate, and how that struggle would translate in the same way that the kind of the cosplayers and the fandom experience translates into the absurd, right?
Yeah.
Like what Des experience, what her specific experience was, trying to be a publicist for this small label. How would that have escalated into the same level of absurdity and silliness as kind of everyone else is at the show? That's, I think, one thing I think I would have liked to have seen. And that's probably just because we come from this from the comic angle, less so from the other fandom angle, so that
even though
made us
you and I
thing.
both enjoy Star Trek and Star Wars, we're just not Trekkies.
I'm not at that level.
I think your third major character here is Lauren, the intern.
Yes,
and
definitely.
I have to say, I was like Googling after a few cracks at Millennials' expense. I was like, are these boomer authors like cracking on this, or are these millennials who are like Lauren and they're having a lot of fun, just like embracing the tropes? Because like, first of all, it shows how old I am and how quickly time moves, that I was like, guys, this is pretty stale. Like, millennials are not the young people anymore, which I was like, I remember in 2017, I was arguing with a boomer who told me that I wasn't a millennial because he was thinking millennials were kids. And I was like, I promise you, like, I was like, I'm on the elder side of millennial. I was a freshman in high school when the year 2000 came. which was the turn of the millennium, which means you were coming of age at the millennium.
Yeah.
That's why they're called millennials, not because they were born then and have no memory of it. So like in 2016, when this book was coming out, I was like, I'm old, I'm bald, I'm married, I'm in my 30s.
Still
2018, even more so.
Yeah.
I was like, millennials are like moving into parenting and home ownership. Like they're not the teenagers like blowing bubble gum and blowing off work and things like that. So I thought that was a weird depiction. I'm like, she seems a lot more Gen Z. And even then, now I'm the old man yelling at the cloud because Gen Z is like in the workforce now.
Yeah.
So it's really Gen Alpha that are the obnoxious ones, but they're like the type of obnoxiousness I thought was true of millennials for the most part. I was amused. Okay, I have not yet said it, and we're an hour into this podcast almost, but this was like one of the most laugh out loud comics I've ever read. Like something about their sense of humor was just getting me again and again and again. And her speaking in emojis, like I don't even know what that sounds like, but there's like an family friendly rating, oh crap moment where she just speaks and it's the poop emoji.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is the best censorship. That's so much better than just, hitting shift and mashing the number row. Or even just like random
the black bar.
Yeah. So like I enjoyed a lot of the fun they had with that character. I felt like she was treated pretty poorly. And I think in 2018, had I read this as it was coming out, I would have thought that's a little dated to have a millennial this young.
That's probably right.
Because I think the youngest millennial would be born in like 95. And by 2018, they're 23.
So like just out, then that would probably track for someone like Lauren here.
She's like
out of college,
on the cusp of millennial. Z. So I'm not to get pedantic about that or be the gatekeeper of generational stuff. But the other thing like that I love in the flashbacks is I think this is probably issue 3 or 4. It shows them walking through Hall B and you just see the booths of people like elk portraits, $15.
I was going to say the thing that you talk about laugh out loud.
Hello. Sorry.
There we go. The thing that I loved the most, like, I mean, the most joy in terms of that sort of just as I'm reading it and I'm laughing was things like the booths. And anytime you saw a wide shot of the con floor. And I think we talked about this way back when we did the Flintstones, right? When Steve Pugh would just put signs in the background that were clearly
Outback Snakehouse.
second, third, fourth level jokes that are just back there. And I feel like EA Denich, who is the artist we haven't named yet, had this similar type of fun. Anytime we do something like that of just what can I riff on? What are things I've seen at shows like the elk portraits thing? Like, I'll draw anyone you want as an elk. You're like, why would you do that? Except there's probably someone at a con who does that, or maybe it's a moose. I don't know. But the idea that that you're just filling the background with whatever random gibberish that probably they just think is funny. Again, is like second, third, fourth level jokes you just throw out there that you don't have to go through all that to kind of get the book and get the humor of it. But if you spend time on those pages, which I definitely did, and read every sign, every advertisement, every booth, the name of every concession stand or whatnot, because all those are intentional choices and they're super fun. And I got a kick out of that. Anytime you can see them play with those ideas and the kinds of booze and the kinds of stalls you see at shows is really, really fun. So I commend EA Denich on that. Other thing I wanted to mention, because I believe these were probably art and not lettering, nothing against Aditya Bidkar, who's a letterer, which was very, very fun. Did you see there was a little note there where a little kind of Easter egg at one point, Lauren, like it's kind of a low shot. You see Lauren is taking out her nunchucks and
Yes.
Dez is holding an award that looks suspiciously like an Eisner that says best lettering on it, 2018.
Yeah.
I did Kabidkar, which I thought was very funny. Who has not won an Eisner yet, but if he keeps working, he probably will at some point for lettering. But I thought it was very, very funny. But what I was saying about the lettering is a handful of times when there would be a sound effect, specifically when it would say Wilhelm scream, like when someone died. Which was probably 3 or 4 times throughout the book. Anytime there's a sound effect like that, I assume that is the artist doing it, not the letterer. Not always the case, but oftentimes those moments are considered part of the art. And I got a kick out of it's anytime it was something like Wilhelm scream or something like that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah. Then we also have this rogues gallery of not villains, but antagonist obstacles. Helvetica is one, Judge Flavia, the gatekeeper. The list goes on. And then you have the guy who is ostensibly the worst of all of them, and he's technically on their team or like buddying up with them, which is Flix. Like this guy's just the worst.
The washed up child star.
Flix Bixby or whatever his name is.
Yeah. The washed up child star. Yeah. The guy who
and then in classic Narcissus fashion, falls in love for
the guy who looks like
himself. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But not cosplaying. The guy was like the replacement actor.
They cast the younger version to keep, because at some point you grow out of it. But yeah, no, he's by far the worst. And again, I'm sure the people who attend a lot of cons, especially people that work at cons, they all have horror stories about which celebrities are good and which ones suck, and sometimes that stuff gets out and it's known, and sometimes, it takes a little while. But yeah, that again, all those things are that may be the most believable part of this book.
Yeah. Yes. I think we'll get some of that in our next book as well with Con and On.
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like the disappointment of some of these people, which like it is sad that you will go and meet so many like amazing comic creators and wonderful people, and you'll meet new ones and just be blown away by, I'll go as far as to say 92% of the creators, celebrities, whatever you encounter. But like when you meet a bad one, it's just like, ugh. Like it leaves such a bad taste in your mouth.
It tanks it so bad. It's really rough. I only a handful of times have I done the celebrity autograph at a show.
I've never done it.
And I've been very fortunate that the people I've gone to have been some of the coolest people on the planet. So it's a very curated group of people that I would go to see, a very small group that I would wait in line to see. But yeah, that level of kind of disappointment there of, oh no, this guy's just a jerk, and there's also a level too of like, maybe when you meet them, when they're on, they seem great, right? When they're doing the autographs and the pictures, they seem great. And then you hear reports about how they treat the people who work at the show, like backstage, right?
Oh, sure.
All the volunteers and things like that.
Like I don't even mean that.
So front facing, was it front? Yeah.
But I've had a negative interaction with a creator before where I came up for an autograph and he or she acted like very put out by the fact that I was there, and I was like, why are you at a booth at this convention if you're not like gonna sign autographs? And I said, how much would you like for your signature? Because there was no sign or anything like that. They thought about it for a few seconds and said $10, as if they were like deciding the price based on me rather than like telling me the fixed price. And I was like, oh, they're in a bad mood, whatever, so I started flipping through their like original art. I was like, oh, I recognize this cover. Like it's just the penciled version of it. I said, how much are you asking for this? And they just wanted to like haggle with me. And they're like, make me an offer. And I was like, I have genuinely no idea what an original penciled only, no ink, no color version of your art would cost.
$10.
I said 50, and they were like, "Come on, man." I was like, I didn't want to play this game. Like you started the game. So it was like, I think honestly, that was my worst interaction with a creator, like just left a bad taste in my mouth. And again, like could have been the worst day of his or her life. Like, so I'm like, none of that stuff.
Could have having a bad show. Could have having a
bad show, bad weekend, bad day, whatever. So I'm like, I still enjoy that person's art. I will be gun shy about going to their table again. But you know, that's it's not the end of the world. So anyway, the fact that that's my worst experience is probably a good thing, but still I was just
definitely.
Oh boy, I kind of get away from this table as soon as possible and stay out of like eyesight, because I was just not getting good vibes. Anyway, there were a couple other pages of like the great Easter egg of like the artists selling stuff of their own. Like maybe it was like a back cover of an issue or something. I don't know. It might have been backup material, but it was someone who was like clearly sitting there with their life's work in their hands and not getting any attention, and someone else selling just total crap right next to them. Maybe it was a variant cover. I don't know.
Might have been some back material. I don't know if that was I don't know if that was on the
I've been frantically flipping through the book trying to find that page again, and I don't see it. So whatever. But anyway, like super fun quest. I also love, speaking of backup matter, the fact that we get his article.
Yes, that's fun.
It's great. Like
yes. Stuff like that's fun. The in-world stuff like that is I always enjoy the effort.
Well, and the in-world illustrations of each of the creators.
Yes.
This is what they would look like if they were in this book.
Yes.
You know, here's Dylan with an eye patch. Ben Coleman very much looking like a Kyle Starks character with a
that's
with
good.
a knife in his mouth.
That's good. That's good. I like that. That picture of him looks like a Kyle Starks, Erica Henderson. Like if they were doing another assassination book, he would be a lead character. Anyway, what did you think of the ending? Like, was that satisfying to you given where the story was going? I know that it's one of those stories where it's like the ending doesn't really matter. But yeah, that was my thought. I don't know if I had a fear of the ending. I guess because of the tone of the book throughout, as long as it didn't end like super dark, I don't think that would have fit the book, right?
When there was the possibility of them sitting next to each other saying we have 90 seconds left to live, you know, and they're kind of bonding, I'm like, that actually could have been a beautiful ending. I would have felt a little jarred by it, but I think I would have accepted it.
I mean, I would have accepted it, but I don't think it wouldn't have sat right with me, because it would have felt like a hard tonal shift. So yeah, so because it wasn't what I thought would have been the worst case, I'm totally fine with it. And again, as I think about it, the idea that they trick the AI, again, it takes me back to war games and the idea of oh wait, we can force this thing. This thing is still a program, right? It still has a directive, and so the idea that we can trick it that way in order to survive. I enjoyed that part of it, but more of it for me just came out of the idea of like, this could have ended very darkly, and they could have decided at the end to do that. And I don't know if that would have, no, I do know that that wouldn't have sat well with me.
But what we did get, what did you think?
It would have taken the book. What we did get, I enjoyed. What we did get, I liked a lot. I thought it was clever. I liked that, kind of in the end, they fool it with kind of what their thoughts of what they want out of their fandom, right? It's very individual, you know. This thing is trying to optimize the show, right? This is what it has to be. This is the canon. This is everything we've done before. And so the fact that it was defeated with the idea of everyone kind of saying the part of that, the thing that connects, that they want out of it, the thing that they love out of it, regardless of if it's accepted canon or whatnot. I do think there's some larger commentary on where and how we derive enjoyment from the things that we were fans of. That in the end, it's not about being a hard stickler to rules and canon. In the end, it's about like, bro, I just like this thing. I don't care that you don't like this thing. That's part of it. But like the one character who was like the Esperanto special, you know, and everyone's like, why? That's, I was like, no, man, underrated. I love it, you know. And which is like saying you like the Ewok holiday special or something like that, you know. It's that level of thing. So, but the idea that to be part of fandom is to accept people who love all parts of it, and for that to be how the overall big bad is defeated. Yeah, I'm good with that.
And you know what? Let me give a shout out to, I think, the exemplar of holding those type of hot takes, which is Rosie Knight, who's been on this podcast. Mm-hmm. But I remember one time, like, I'm always trying to be like the non-judgmental fan. Like, people like what they like. It's totally fine. And when The Batman came out, she and Jason were talking, and they were going through what each of their favorite Batman movies was. And, you know, Jason was really locked into like the Nolan trilogy, but also like, you know, the original Burton one, while it has its flaws, brought this whole tone to the character that was like forever transforming, not just that, but what comic book movies could be. So he was like debating all of this, and Rosie confidently gets up and says Batman and Robin, like the Joel Schumacher one.
The campiest of camp,
I almost drove my car off the road. I'm like, I was like, no, don't judge, just listen. And she's like, I don't know, it's campy, it's fun. And I'm like, oh my gosh. It's not just that I disagree that it's definitely campy, but I don't think it's fun. But you're also comparing it to everything Nolan did and Burton and whatever. So anyway, I was like, yep, she's pushing my buttons here. And then she wasn't doing it to be a troll. Like, that's genuinely what she enjoys. And that's phenomenal. Like, I actually like, I like being the holder of those positions.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a hipster quality to, I think both of us like that. There's a contrarian quality there. And I think if there's a lesson in this book and a lesson in someone like Rosie's kind of viewpoint, is the idea of like, you can like what you like, but you don't have to make anyone else like it, you know?
Yeah. Like she was not giving like an apologia for it. She was just like, oh no, that's the one I like.
Yeah, I shouldn't have to convince you why I'm a fan of this part of the fandom. You know, I shouldn't have to convince anyone.
Well, and my other data point was, what's her favorite Marvel movie? Do you know? The Eternals.
Oh, Rosie's. Yeah, she loves Eternals. Yeah.
Which I enjoyed myself in the theater, but it was COVID still, like, you know, a little bit post-COVID. So I didn't really like see it with anyone. I went home, saw like the critical consensus on it was not great. I was like, well, like, it was a little slow or draggy, or, you know, it had this and this, but like, I liked the experience. I thought it was beautifully shot, all this other stuff. And so I just didn't talk to people about it, because I was like, well, I kind of liked it. And clearly people didn't, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. And when Rosie got up and was like, ride or die for Eternals, I was like, oh, cool. There's space here. So I found people in the Discord for that podcast that liked it. And I was like, this is great. We can talk about what we liked about it without someone jumping in and telling us how wrong our taste is.
Exactly. And that's how you overcome toxic fandom. The idea of toxic fandom is like, you need to like it. It's not that you need to like this thing. It's that you need to like this thing in this way. And that way is the way that I think that he should be liked. And that's where every fandom has its problem. When you're trying to dictate the way you like something, how you like it, what you like about it, why you like it, onto someone else. And the people in communities, fan communities, who don't understand that, like they're the ones they're the ones that give every fandom a bad name. And it is why Star Wars fans are among the most maligned, with the idea of like no one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans, which I understand the joke about that, but like in general, not true. It is the idea that those fans are the worst Star Wars fans are the most vocal about it, and that this is the only way Star Wars should exist. If it's not like this, it's not Star Wars. If I don't get the thing that I want in the way that I want it, and that is what ruins and destroys fandom. And the way that's literalized in this book of like, yeah, when it started out after the bombs hit, like everyone came together, we're all working together, right? And we got to have some semblance of rules for society, right? And so we base it on the Skylarks. We're here because that's what the big draw of the show was. And then the longer it went on, the more fractious it got, the more tribal it got. Because everyone started retreating into their quarters of like, no, this is the way that I think it should be. You start getting into these entrenched ideologies, and now I'm not certain if I'm talking about comics or fandom anymore, but that's what happens in society, right? The idea when you think your job is to dictate how someone feels and thinks about something. And you know, in the grand scheme of things, how someone feels or doesn't feel about Star Wars or about the MCU or the DCU, none of that actually matters, other than it matters to you, right? It's an incredibly important, unimportant thing, because if it's something that you derive joy from, you should be able to derive it any way that you see fit. No one should take that away from you. No one should make you feel bad about that. And if we can get through some of that, then, you know.
Like there is the joking part. So I actually didn't know how to read like the last page of this book because of that. Where she says, of course, dude, we were a pretty good team back there. So you're going to come to next year's con?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, Des, what? I can get you a free pass. Oh my God, Des. I was like, is that the like 80s, 90s buddy cop sign off line where she's joking about like, obviously neither of us is going back? Or is she like, no, seriously, like you did seem to enjoy yourself in there a little bit.
Well, no.
You want to go to the next one?
So after that, on maybe like a closing coda page, there is the con badge from the long con, which was long con 50. And then there is a badge for con 51, which would have been the next show, right? Implying that Des did at least go to that there was a show there. I think that's meant to be joking, but also for Victor to be like we almost died multiple times at this show. So I think it was less about the content of the show and just like, yo, we almost just died. Like, give me a week or a month to think about this, to settle with it. But I do think it was meant to be more of kind of the 80s sign off of that sort of buddy cop thing.
Like,
definitely. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I was like, honestly, with Des, I could believe that she's like, so next year, like, we'll pencil it in. And
it could be.
Because I think her interest in him is growing as he's becoming more open to this world.
Yeah.
And like, I genuinely believe they're just friends. There's nothing actually romantic hinted here in the whole book, right?
Which I'm totally fine with. Yeah.
Oh, not only fine with, I find so refreshing.
I think it helps the book.
Yeah. I think
it helps the book. Yeah.
At another publisher or perhaps with another editor, this would have been like a studio note of like, well, you know, you'd pick up X many more readers if there was a love interest component to it, which I doubt is true in a book like this. But like someone who's here for a love interest plot, like you just kind of lazily shoving it on the two main characters. Certainly if they did a movie adaptation, they wouldn't be able to resist, you know, putting these two together. That's just the nature of films and studios.
No, the book is better for it not being there. 100%.
Yeah. I feel bad because we're like an hour and a half in. I feel like we have only kind of skimmed the surface of the book, but I think the book will also keep coming up as we keep going through certainly next week, which is another con focused book.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, well, definitely next week as we talk about con and on, the specifics around cons. And then I do think there is some through lines with the following two books, Parasocial and Rogues Gallery, because those books are also focused on the celebrity aspect of fandom.
Oh, sure.
Which so I do think this is a book we'll come back to in terms of comparison of how the long con took that idea of celebrity fandom in its kind of absurd and silly direction to see how these other books have do it, is to kind of take it in. What's their spin on that? What's their take on a similar kind of construct of an idea, the similar germ of an idea. So yeah, no, I definitely think, and I agree. Definitely next week when we get into to con and on, there'll be probably more discussion in terms of a comparison, just to talk about how it's depicted, how the shows and the ideas and shows, the evolution of shows, all that will come up. So yeah, we talked a lot today about cons in general, our experience with cons, but I think that's inevitable with these books, since again, this is so much about kind of turning the mirror in on both of us for our own experiences. You can't help but, I mean, again, when I read books like this, I can't help but think about. I can't help think about my own experience at these books. Not that but the
other way this conversation could have gone, which I don't think would have been necessarily better or more interesting, is us just going through and picking up every single like Easter egg, which is like, it would be fun to do. I don't think it'd be that fun to listen to.
I don't think it would be either.
Like, I do love the way they mash characters together to avoid getting too close to copyright infringement. So like, I'm looking at the cover of chapter 8 or issue 8. And the character who has, a movie poster frame on the wall behind them later in this issue called Chill Factor. And I think it's depicted in the first volume as well.
Yes.
He has a very Booster Gold look on the front cover of this, but his powers are much more like an X-Men, but his vibe seems to be a little bit more like, I don't know, a Captain Cold. So it's like, you're kind of
Captain
merging Captain Cold, Booster Gold, and who's the X-Men who freezes things? Who's in the Bryan Singer movies? He dates the one girl. Iceman. Yeah. There you go.
His name's literally Iceman, dude.
I'm not fluent in X-Men.
I'm just saying, you could have guessed at that one. You could have been like Ice Guy and you'd have been halfway there. So
yeah, no one took a second pass at that round of naming characters. It's like, he's really good with magnets. Iceman.
Look,
that was like a placeholder
not that
name.
creative. Not that creative with the names for some of these. All right. But yeah, no. Again, that to me that falls in those categories of the booth signs and things like that. Right. It's like, what can we get away with? What's fun? What can we put out there that not everyone, but that we're pretty certain the people who read this book are going to get. They're going to know what we're referencing with this character or this show or this book or this sign or something like that. Yeah, those things are fun, and I agree. It might be fun for us and not super fun to listen to. So
yeah, but it's super fun to read. I enjoyed both of these books thoroughly. Highly recommend them to any comic fan, especially if you've been to a con. If you have not been to a con, don't let this book scare you off, because they are a wonderful experience, which I think the book actually does convey. Like they poke fun at a lot of the tropes of the con, and they have a lot of fun with the type of people that are here, but ultimately you feel a deep love for the subject matter.
I agree 100%. You can only make a book like this if going to cons is not just part of something your job you do, but you do find some love and joy in it. You can't write a book like this if you actively despise or hate the idea of conventions and fan conventions. It's got to come from a place of love.
Yeah, this is the comedy Comic-Con version. This is to Comic-Con comedy what Top 10 was to like superhero like big team type stories, where a book that's just totally filled with Easter eggs. Now in top 10, they're not necessarily funny, but like Gene Ha just doing so much work in the background of every page, and so many characters being like similar. I'm like, okay, I feel like a kindred spirit here in that it's like a comic that has a meta angle to it, but it's not just the meta angle, which I think that's the bad version of this book, right? Is like just shoving a bunch of references in here, not really telling a story. Just having a, Family Guy, just reference as many things as you can and try to pass that off as witty
to show them what you know, but not have this is the book. This is the book. The way it's written is they're showing what they know and also their experience with it. What you're describing, the worst version of this book, is just someone rattling off what they know, what they read about, or what they heard. And that book has no heart to it.
Or what they hate, which is I just can't imagine being motivated to write a book, movie, play, music, whatever, exclusively focused on something you hate. But
I agree too. I agree. That seems like a waste of time, and yet so many people,
it's good money in it sometimes.
Yeah, there really is, which is sad commentary on the world, but is what it is.
Yeah. Okay. So next week we'll be conning on just 5 issues from Ahoy. Totally different flavor. Like similar conceit in that
similar setting.
Yeah, similar setting. It's like we're following hilariously white male black woman.
Yes.
Into a Comic-Con, but could not be more different apart from being identically the same.
Yeah. But I do think that'll be a fun comparison to the Long Con in terms of just how they deal with the same types of tropes and ideas that come up that surround cons and going to cons and being an exhibitor or a guest at a con or being a fan or a journalist, things like that. It's all wrapped up. So I'm looking forward to that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot shorter too, just those 5 issues.
Yeah. So we will be back here same time next week. And you can find us storydarks.com, bsky.app/ whatever. Just search Storydarks.
Storydarks.
We're never going to get those handles down.
Nope.
And Instagram.com/Storydarks. Find us all the places podcasts are found, including YouTube. I don't know who listens to audio-only podcasts on YouTube, but they auto-publish there, and I can't stop it. So, like, I literally... I don't know which AI bot I should talk to about fixing that, but the reality is none, even though I'm a Gemini Pro user or whatever.
Yes.
Good Lord. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Peace.